Welcome to Fireside on Sarita, a series of presentations on topics related to the Baha'i Faith. And each topic will be coupled with an open forum space for sharing, exploration, discovery, and learning. But before we begin, it is important to acknowledge that we reside on the traditional territories of the Cowichan tribes and the Malahat Nation, here on the west shore of Shawnigan Lake, Vancouver Island, British Columbia, Canada. Shawnigan Lake, the lake of ancestors, where for centuries and to this day, the first peoples come both to honor and to commune with those who have gone before. We honor and welcome their ancient presence and ask their blessing on the path of learning that lies before us. Again, welcome to Fireside on Sarita. Welcome to the third Fireside in this first series of Firesides, dealing with 6 paragraphs from the Lahi Hikmat, the Tablet of Wisdom by Baha'u'llah, revealed to Aka Muhammad, the erudite, the illustrious, the saintly. Abdul Baha described Aka Muhammad as the flame of God, as having a universal mind. He was highly educated, well-versed in many of the philosophies of his day and the sciences of his day, and he was so interested in science and obviously very bright. And obviously he made some comments or shared some of his ideas about the beginning of creation. And so that is why we're calling this Fireside number 3, Beginnings. This paragraph is the first of the 6, and it deals with beginning and that idea. I was going to group the first 2 paragraphs together, but when I began to prepare, it became obvious that I was going to be dealing with this paragraph alone. The topic here and what is dealt with in this paragraph can be a little bit perplexing. It's not an easy thing to understand, and it requires some sorting out. So what I'm going to do is share with you my thoughts on it. And again, this is just me, Michael Robinson. I am not anything special as a Baha'i. I'm just a Baha'i. There are no priests in the Baha'i faith. There are no experts in the Baha'i faith. Yes, there are people who are studied and who have learned all their lives about the writings and who are well-versed and so on. But as I had mentioned in the first of these firesides, when you're standing at the shore of this ocean, the ocean of this revelation, this ocean of gems, who could claim to be an expert? It's impossible. So all we can do is enjoy the privilege of being able to raise these gems up and hold them in the light and turn them and admire them and to look deeply into them and to learn what is to be learned about them and through them and to share that with others. And we share that with others, not to come to some kind of definitive end, other than to stimulate conversation and sharing from others. So I share my ideas and thoughts and reflections on this paragraph with the purpose of stimulating a good conversation during the open forum session, the open forum portion of this fireside that will come at the end. So that's why I'm doing this. I'm not saying that this is how it is. I could be wrong. Some of the things I say could be just wrong, and there's nothing wrong with being wrong, as long as you're willing to be corrected. And I'm always willing to be corrected. Now, Baha'u'llah refers to assertions that Akka Muhammad made about the beginning of creation. So we can assume that Akka Muhammad shared something with Baha'u'llah in his letter about the beginning of creation. And in this paragraph, Baha'u'llah confronts us with an apparent contradiction. And what I have learned about apparent contradictions is that they are an invitation to go deep. Because in the resolution, when you find the resolution to that apparent conflict, new vistas of learning and understanding are open to you. It is very much like the quantum universe and the macro universe that seemed in total disagreement with one another until men like Paul Dirac found the mathematical language that unified them. Now, Baha'u'llah says, as regards thine assertion about the beginning of creation, this is a matter on which conceptions vary by reason of the divergencies in men's thoughts and opinions. So Baha'u'llah begins by saying, well, there's more than one way of looking at this. It depends. It depends because there's divergency in men's thoughts and opinions on this matter. And he continues, wert thou to assert that it, and it is a pronoun referring to creation, wert thou to assert that it hath ever existed and shall continue to exist, it would be true. And Baha'is look at it this way, that God, the Creator, cannot be separated from his attributes. And one of his attributes is Creator, so he must always have had a creation. One of his attributes is Educator, so he must always have had creatures to educate. One of his attributes is Lord, so he must have always had subjects. So we can say that creation has neither beginning nor end. Just as God has no beginning nor end, creation therefore must have no beginning and no end. And as Baha'u'llah put it, it would be true. Then comes a little kind of a quirk of grammar, a semicolon, or a semicolon, followed by or. Now I looked this up. I thought this is unusual, and it is unusual. It's usually comma or. These are two independent clauses that are going to be joined here. And there is a conjunction or, and usually when there's a conjunction, it's just comma. The best answer I could find was that a semicolon used in this way is like a strong comma. So it's used for emphasis. So we're talking about either or. So Baha'u'llah is saying either you can look at it either this way or you can look at it this other way. And the first way is that it has no beginning and it has no end, that creation has no beginning and no end. So what is the other way? Or we could look at it that it would suggest that creation does have a beginning and does have an end. So you can look at it this way or that way. Or. And the or, unfortunately, is a little bit obscure. Or maybe fortunately, it's a little bit obscure. Maybe it is fortunate because it makes us work a little bit. Or, Baha'u'llah continues, wert thou to affirm the same concept as is mentioned in the sacred scriptures, no doubt would there be about it. No doubt would there be about it, for it hath been revealed by God, the Lord of the worlds, So what might he be referring to in the scriptures that regards beginnings? How about Genesis in the King James Version of the Bible? In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. In the beginning. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. And the earth was void and without form. As asserted in the scriptures, there's one. I don't know many others. That's the one I am familiar with. But he is saying, and this is how I see it, that if you were to say that creation has neither beginning nor end, no doubt there would be about it. It would be true. And, or, if thou were to assert that creation had a beginning, as is described in the Bible, God created in the beginning the heaven and the earth, then this also would be true. It has a beginning and has an end. So how can both of these be true? And this is the perplexing part. It appears to be a contradiction. But is it? We will see as we go through the paragraph that Baha'u'llah alludes very strongly. Indeed, he says, he, God, the Creator, was a hidden treasure. And he goes on to say that this is a station. Now think about this. Think about these words. This is a station that can never be described, nor even alluded to. So not described or even alluded to. It is beyond us. There is a station. There is a knowledge. There are understandings that are beyond us. Absolute knowledge is beyond us. Absolute knowledge belongs to the absolute. We are limited. And our limit, the limit of our capacity to learn and to know, is that we understand relative knowledge. Our knowledge has to have brackets. Everything has to be bracketed. Everything has to be juxtaposed. We can't see unless there is contrast. I mean, physically see. We cannot see unless there is contrast. Try it on a computer program, or you take the contrast to zero. Well, your image disappears. We must have contrast. We know kindness and appreciate and love kindness because of its opposite. We know generosity. As Abdu'l-Baha explains, how could we understand generosity if there were not also greed? How could we understand knowledge if there were not also ignorance? So we live in this world where things need to be relative. And we cannot understand the absolute. And in the station of I did wish to make myself known, I believe this is a reference to the Quran, God was, and his creation had ever existed beneath his shelter, from the beginning that hath no beginning, apart from its beginning preceded by a firstness, capital F, firstness, which cannot be regarded as firstness, and originated by a cause inscrutable, even unto all men of learning. Inscrutable. Not for us to understand, beyond our understanding, inscrutable. So this is how I resolve that conflict. One, the first condition described by Baha'u'llah in this paragraph regards absolute, the absolute. In the absolute sense, creation has neither beginning nor end. In the relative sense, the world where we live, creation has a beginning and an end. Or we might even suggest beginnings and ends. And we will see in the subsequent paragraph to this, the very first words of the second sentence, Baha'u'llah says, the world of existence came into being through, and he goes on and describes those first moments of the world of creation. And that will be for the next fireside. So in summary, you can say that creation has neither beginning nor end, and you are correct. You can say that the world of creation has a beginning and an end, and be correct, because one deals with the absolute knowledge, a knowledge which is beyond our comprehension, and the other deals with relative knowledge, which is within the grasp and purview of our comprehension and capacities. So I'm going to leave it at that, and we will talk about all of this, hopefully have a rousing discussion in the open forum session, the open forum portion, where we can share, where we can explore, where we can discover and learn together. I thank you for your kind attention. If I could run, where would I go? And if I could learn just one thing, what would I know? And if I could hold back time, where would I be? Here, this day, this day. This day, in this day, this day, this day, and in a day of wonder, you step out into the light, and in a day of thunder, where the lightning strikes, be where the lightning strikes, and it strikes in this day, in this day, in this day, this day, this day, this day. In this day, in this day, this day. This is the day of the crumbling. This is the day of the strife. This is the day of the building up. This is the day of life. This is the day of the building up. This is the day. This is the day. This is the day. And if I could run, where would I go? And if I could learn just one thing, what would I know? And if I could hold back time, where would I be? I'd be here in this day, this day, this day. In this day, this day, this day.